Hey guys, Bill SIEMA here, SPRO Pro, and we are going to talk a little bit about the SPRO BBZ-1 Rat 30 and the best rod and reel combination that I could find for this system. I was told that the SPRO BBZ-1 Rat 30 is flying off the shelves. I mean, this is one of the #1 sellers right now. I enjoy the 50. I think that's the best bait overall, but I mean, there's a lot of people catching fish with the 30, so you can't knock the stats. A lot of people asking questions. I cannot tell you how many people asking questions on, Bill, what's the best rod and reel setup for this? Now, I've heard stories, and I want to make sure you guys understand what I'm saying here. I've heard stories of guys throwing this Rat 30 with like 65-pound braid and a flipping stick. That is for the Rat 50. That is not for the Rat 30. You will blow out the split rings and the hooks. It's like throwing a pop R with a flipping stick. You know, your system is way overpowered for the tool you're using. So here's what I've done the last 3 months. I went out and I bought a whole lot of Daiwa product, and there's certain reasons why I buy them, because I want to do honest field testing. I want to make sure this stuff is absolutely rock and roll, because the bottom line is I'm using it, and if I'm using it, I have the faith in it. Then I feel, you know, pretty sure that when I tell you guys to go get something, if you're looking for a rod and reel setup, I'm not going to mislead you at all. What we're talking about is the BBZ-1 Rat 30. We have a 1/2 ounce bait. I'm pairing this up with the 721 Daiwa Zillion with a ballistic 2500, and this is 20-pound Maxima braid. Love this system by far, period. This is my favorite system. Now, why do you ask for a spinning rod? This is technically a small bait. This is a finesse bait. And if I set up, I have a problem if I set this up with a bait caster, which is the one we talked about in the previous video. If you like a bait caster and this is what you want to use, this Zillion right here, the 731 with the Zillion TWS, money all day long. You could throw it with the Rat 30. But I wouldn't go too high on your line, you know, your line size. And I wouldn't button down the drag, because as you increase the size of your rod, reel, and line combination, it affects the overall performance of how this bait works in the water, especially when you hook a fish. So that is why I recommend a spinning rod for the Rat 30. I love it. It does a couple things. The Rat 30, first of all, when you guys reel it, and if you've noticed it, it actually, when you start reeling it with the low rod tip, this thing will dive a little bit more. It doesn't have the surface area as the Rat 50. It doesn't have as much buoyancy when I filled it up with foam. So with the same bill angle as the 50, when you drop it down to the 30, it's going to dive a little bit more. So high rod stick. When you throw this out at a far distance, keep your rod tip high, reel it nice and slow, and you're going to keep that bait on the surface a lot better with this. Also, what that does with this, I have a pretty light drag on this ballistic. What that does is, with that rod tip high, it's almost put me out of position for a hook set, which I want, because when a fish hits a smaller bait, I want them to load the system up and lock themselves in. I want them to pretty much set their hooks on themselves with this system. I don't want to feel something and just start reeling and setting like I would do on the 6-inch BBZ or the Rat 50, because the mechanics of this bait in a fish, especially bigger ones, it's different. And here's the best way to explain it. Here's some on the water, you know, food for thought for you guys. Let me try to get this undone. Okay, I want to show you something right now, and here's something to really think about when you pick up the right rod and reel combination for certain lures. When you're fishing a smaller bait, picture this like a small pop R or something. If a big fish engulfs this, and it's in a big bucket's mouth like this, and you just wail on this thing, you feel something, it blows up on it, you feel a tick, and you just wail on it. What happens is, those hooks down there, they're just hanging, they're just suspended in that big bucket's mouth. And you wail on this thing hits the back of their lips. These hooks are just kind of suspending there. It opens its mouth, it jumps, and this thing just swims right out or blows it out, and you never get a hook set. That is why it's so important. The smaller the bait, you want this fish to suck it in, because it's smaller. It's not like a 6-inch or a Rat 50 where they're going to suck in just the hook, you know. And if a really big one eats the bigger fish, you know, the bigger bait, there's more bait and more hooks hanging down underneath it. So when you feel it, you got a better shot of hooking them. On this, what you want them to do, you want them to suck it, you want them to turn around, you want those hooks to catch in the corner of their mouth, and you want to do a reel set on that. So I've heard guys using this with flipping sticks and big line, and when they get hit, they're just laying the wood to them. And you guys are going to miss a lot of fish. And you're going to say, hey Bill, the hooks and split rings are pulling out. Well, yeah, because you're using a baseball bat with a little teeny tennis ball. You know, it's not a right combination. So that is why I use the spinning rod and reel combination. I love this. It puts me in a better position also for distance. With this half-ounce bait, I could throw this on a spinning rod a country mile. Because there are some times when I have fish blowing up on bait fish and everything else that I need a bait to go country mile. Well, this is that other thing. You get the TWS system with the air brake and the lighter line with this rod and reel setup. I can throw this half-ounce bait with this bait caster just as far as I can with the spinning rod. But remember, when you start beefing up the rod and reel combination, your hook sets, your performance, your mechanics are changing a little bit, and that's what you have to remember. So on this, if I was going to start off with the Rat 30, you know, from kids to, you know, fishing tournaments, which I do, this is the perfect rod and reel setup. Also, this is a versatile rod because this rod and reel system, I'm going to throw the 2.5 swim bait, the BBZ. I'll put a top shot of an 8-pound Maxima, and I'll throw the 2.5 all day long on this. And it's a great drop shot rod, and it's a great split shot rod, and I've thrown the fat fly on this thing, and I've thrown little crankbaits on it. So like I said, when I'm looking for rod and reel combinations, I'm looking for it to be very versatile across all spectrums of fishing. So the line on this, I'm using Maxima 20-pound braid is my favorite. If I was going to use a monofilament on this, I would go no less than 8. Especially with the half-ounce, I'd go no less than 8-pound test monofilament. 10 at the most with this reel. Like I said, if you're going to go to 8 to 10 to 12, 12 would be probably the most I'd ever go on this Rat 30, just for the size and knowing the components. I would beef it up, and I would go to the Zillion TWS and the Zillion 731 rod. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Like I said, I've put a lot of time and effort on the water to find the right rod and reel setups. Make sure you go to Daiwa.com and check out their equipment. I'm going to continue to do this. I actually have an order in for some more rod and reels. I have some testing on some bigger, the Lexa 400 and the 801 rod and reel. I'm going to try to get out and do some yellowtail fishing. And when the striper fishing start again next year, and the big bass and the big swim baits, I want to be using that a lot. So hope you guys enjoy these tutorials. I know there's not a lot of fish catches in this, but sometimes it's not about fish catches. It's about getting to the fish catch. And getting to the fish catch is having the right rod, reel, line combination with the best lure out there you can find, so it puts the odds in your favor for catching more fish. So hope you guys enjoy this. I really dig giving you guys as much information I can out on the water. If you have questions, just ask, and I'll do my best to answer them. And we hope to get you guys your personal best, and hope you guys catch some big fish this summer. So take care. We'll catch you next time out of the water.